If you seriously want to master the fretboard, you need to learn intervals. Period. In this video, I show you exactly how to learn and practice intervals on the guitar. Understanding intervals will not only solidify your fretboard knowledge, especially where the note names are, but it's also the very foundation for understanding almost all of music theory, because most concepts like chords and scales are explained using intervals, and that's why you must have a solid theoretical and practical understanding of basic intervals before you can fully grasp what a chord or a scale even means. When you practice the exercises from this video alongside with the exercise from part 1 of this series, they become even more powerful because you'll be forced to think about the note names to play the intervals correctly. In contrast, while the first exercise is quite quick to learn, it's easy to fall into the trap of playing it mechanically without fully grasping the note names, which obviously can slow your progress, and we don't want that. But by adding the interval exercise I'm about to show you, you'll not only solidify your fretboard knowledge, but also lay the groundwork for mastering music theory. So let's dive in. This exercise is played horizontally like the first exercise in this series. I recommend that you know at least the note names of the C major key or the natural notes, because otherwise you may have a hard time locating the intervals if you are not familiar with this. And if that's the case, simply go back to part 1 of this series and spend some time practicing the exercises there until you can play and name the notes. There are just 2 instructions to play this exercise. First, don't leave the key. Use only the notes of the key you are playing in. And second, we will play only basic intervals, which are the following. Starting from every note of the key played horizontally along a single string. Now, with these 2 rules in mind, let me show you how it's done. We start on the high E string and stay in the key of C major. So we are using just the natural notes, which are A, B, C, D, E, F and G. Let's say you want to find a fifth. According to our rule, you can only use the notes of a specific key. So, to make it even more specific, we want to find the perfect fifth from the high E string as our reference. So, in the key of C, what is the fifth starting from E? Now, this is how you need to count. 1 is the starting point E. 2 is the F on the 1st fret. 3 is the G on the 3rd fret. 4 is the A, 5th fret. And here is our 5th, the 7th fret on the high E string, so the 5th from E is B. Okay, let's do this again. Let's say we now want to play the 7th and G is our reference. So, what is the 7th from G if we stay in the key of C? Here is how you count. 1 is G, 2 is A, 3 is B, 4 is C, 5 is D, 6 is E, and 7 is F on the 13th fret. I think you get this. It's relatively simple. You just need to know the notes of the key and where they are located on the fretboard. This is really the prerequisite for doing this exercise. But don't worry, I will walk you through each interval so you can follow along with this exercise. It will become clear as soon as you start practicing. Once you do this a few times, it will become easy, I promise. And even if you are not sure if you're doing it right, you can take a look at this sheet here to find the right interval. So this way you can get the fundamentals right. To keep the video short and respect your time, I demonstrate this exercise only on the high E string in the key of C. However, just like the exercises from part 1 of this series, this exercise is designed to be played on all strings and in different keys. So please keep this in mind as you practice. Let's start with the second intervals. A second interval is either a minor second, which is the distance of 1 fret, or a major second, which is the distance of 2 frets. Counting is easy because you move 2 positions up. 1, 2. If you start on the high E string, counting 1, 2, moving from E to F is a minor second because it's the distance of 1 fret. Next, counting 1, 2 from F to G, so it's a major second because it's 2 frets up. Next, counting 1, 2 moving from G to A is also a major second. Here is the entire exercise played on the high E string. Now let's cover the third intervals. It's always either a minor third, which is the distance of 3 frets, or a major third, which then is the distance of 4 frets. The counting goes like this. You just count to 3. 1, 2, 3. You start on the high E string, counting 1, 2, 3. From E to F to G, it's a minor third. Next, counting 1, 2, 3, from F to G to A, it's a major third, because it's the distance of 4 frets. Next, counting 1, 2, 3, moving from G to A to B, is also a major third, because it spans 4 frets. Here is the entire exercise. The perfect fourth intervals are quite stretchy, but still possible to play without moving your gripping hand too much to change position. A perfect fourth is always 5 frets wide. However, we need to make an exception to stay in the key of C when playing a fourth from the note F, but more on that in a minute. Okay, counting goes like this. You just count to 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Starting on the high E string and counting 1, 2, 3, 4, from E to F to G to A, it's a perfect fourth. Next, from F to G to A to B, this is not a perfect fourth. This is an exception. Listen carefully and hear the difference. This interval is called a tritone. To stay in the key of C, we don't have a perfect fourth from the note F. A perfect fourth from F would be a B flat, but B flat is not in the key of C major, therefore we use B. So the distance from F to B is 6 half steps wide and is known as a tritone. We will encounter this interval again when playing the perfect fifth interval, so be prepared. Next, moving from G to A to B to C is a perfect fourth again because it spans 5 frets. Here is the entire exercise played on the high E string. Okay, playing intervals above the perfect fifth is more challenging because they require moving your gripping hand to change positions. However, this is not a speed exercise, and learning to make clean position changes is an important part of guitar technique as well. So, a perfect fifth is always 7 frets wide. However, we need to make an exception when playing a perfect fifth from the note B to stay in the key of C. More on that shortly. So, counting goes like this. you count to 5. Start on the high E string from E to F to G to A to B. You get a perfect fifth. Next, counting from F to G to A to B to C. Moving from G to A to B to C to D is a perfect fifth because it spans 7 frets. Next, moving from A to B to C to D to E is a perfect fifth. For the interval from B to F, we need to address the tritone again. A perfect fifth from B would be F sharp, but F sharp is not in the key of C, so therefore we need F instead, which is a tritone. So this interval from B to F is either called a tritone or a diminished fifth. Here is the entire exercise. Here are the sixth intervals. A sixth interval is either a minor sixth, which is the distance of 8 frets, or a major sixth, which then is the distance of 9 frets. Counting goes like this. You count to 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Starting on the high E string and counting from E to F to G to A to B to C. It's a minor sixth. Next, counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 from F to G to A to B to C to D. It's a major 6 because it spans 9 frets. Moving from G to A to B to C to D to E is also a major 6 because it spans 9 frets. Okay, here's the entire exercise. Good, let's cover the seventh interval. A seventh interval is either a minor seventh, which then is the distance of 10 frets, or a major seventh, which is the distance of 11 frets. Counting goes like this. You count to 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Starting on the high E string and counting from E to F to G to A to B to C to D. It's a minor seventh. Next, from F to G to A to B to C to D to E. It's a major seventh because it spans 11 frets. Okay, moving from G to A to B to C to D to E to F is also a minor seventh because it spans 10 frets. Okay, here's the entire exercise. Alright, let's cover the last interval, the octave. This one is easy because the note names are identical. For example, the octave of E is also named E, so you don't need to count this out in detail, but here is how it works. You simply count to 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Starting on the high E string and counting from E to F to G to A to B to C to D to E. It's an octave. Next, from F to G to A to B to C to D to E to F. Moving from G to A to B to C to D to E to F to G, it's an octave. Okay, I think you get it. Here is the entire exercise. As you may sense, this exercise is quite comprehensive with many possible variations. So, how should you practice this? Well, it depends on your level and how much time you are willing to dedicate to it. There are three main aspects: the string you are playing on, the key you are playing in, and the interval you want to practice. Each of these options can involve a single or multiple choices. You can practice on a single string or multiple strings in one key or multiple keys within your practice session. So, here is an overview of the possible combinations. I think you get the idea. This is something you have to decide for yourself, but to give you some guidance, here's a rough guide for 3 different stages, and feel free to adapt this to your specific needs or ignore it completely. Alright, make sure to check out my blog where you'll find tabs for the exercises and additional resources to help with your practice. Also, be sure to go through all the intervals I've shown you, at least for the key of C major. Listen, I understand that this exercise requires you to first learn and locate all the intervals, which can be time consuming and might even feel like tedious work at first. But this is where the rubber meets the road, because this is the kind of work that most guitar players tend to avoid, which leads them to get stuck because they don't learn these fundamentals. I know that learning intervals might not seem that exciting, but they form the foundation for almost everything you'll encounter in music theory. So, since this topic is so important, I'll be covering vertical intervals as well in the upcoming video. So, stay tuned and I'll see you in the next video.